I've taken the skin off the door, and taking the skin off is actually not too hard. I got a few tips from Dave at Dave Jaguar 66. If you lightly sand the edge, it makes it easier to bend these back, and that's exactly what I've done. They bend back, and then all you've got to do is to free up the couple of welds. There's a weld here, spot weld here and here. Also another two on the other side. Couple in there, and then there's a bit of a weld up in the top here. I just cut that out. I haven't removed the weld yet, and I'll do that probably now. The condition of the door is actually, at this stage, from what I can see, is not too bad. The bottom edge, of course, is gone, and I'd say that needs replacing from end to end. The rest of it's got a bit of surface rust, a bit more rust around the front end. Mainly it appears to be surface rust, but I'll remove all that rust. Now, I don't sandblast except small sections. I've got a little spot blaster which I use for the body, and just in very localized places. So if you're doing an area like that, it's not too bad to remove the rust with my little spot gun. Bit messy, but it's quite effective. As for this, I'll be dropping this in a vinegar bath of white vinegar, and that'll remove all the rust. Now, taking the skin off was the easy part. The hard part was actually undoing the hinge. Now, that took me an hour to get the 4 bolts and the 2 set screws out of the hinge. Now, I actually had to use the hot spanner, and for those who don't know what the hot spanner is, that's the oxyacetylene torch to heat up these brackets almost to red, and then I was able to gradually undo the bolts. They're well and truly frozen in, so that was the hardest part of the door. Anyway, it's ready to go in the bath. I cleaned up the door frame in the vinegar bath. It's got all the rust off, left a little bit of the paint, so not too worried about that. I can clean that off. The damage is not too bad. There's a bit of damage here on this end here, this bottom section, which I assume always rusts out anyway. That's mainly gone along this edge, although I've seen a few bits a bit further in, which means I might actually have to maybe replace all of this. I'll just have a look at that a bit further. So certainly this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed. No trouble on this end. The drain tray, little drain or dish or whatever you call this on the end here, it's not in bad condition, but I've just noticed that it's riveted. Well, it's got 3 rivets, one there, one there. There's a hole there as if a rivet was meant to go in there. Probably wouldn't have been a bad idea, so just lets water straighten the door. And it's brazed along the top here. This is not in bad condition, but I might actually remove that so I can clean up underneath it. Now, no doubt water's got into that. There is seam sealer in there, but I can't get the remains of it out, so I need to make sure this is right underneath. it looks alright on the inside of the door, but certainly it'll have a build-up of something underneath that, so I'll probably take that out and clean that up. A little bit of a hole there, which I'll probably repair. So all in all, it's not too bad. I'll just survey how much of this I'm going to replace. Maybe a fair bit of it. Certainly not all of it, but quite a bit of it. Anyway, it's cleaned up quite nicely. The vinegar does a pretty good job. I've had this in, only sits in for a week. I'll just go and get a couple of other pieces. I'll just turn the video off. This closing plate I put into the bath, that was all covered in rust. You can see it's all back to bare steel. I've put some rust converter on that, because as soon as you clean it off, it gets a very fine layer of rust just from the moisture in the atmosphere. When you kill that with phosphoric acid, it just preserves the metal. So that's all cleaned up. This was the side of the bulkhead at the front. That's all cleaned up. That's where it was rusted at the bottom. It's pretty badly pitted in there. I'll either repair that or replace that, not too sure which. This was the bracket inside the closing plate at the rear. That was covered in rust. As you can see, it's just a piece of bare clean steel now. So as I say, vinegar bath, a week. That I was thinking about replacing. Now I'll probably just look at repairing it. It's not too bad. It's just a little bit on the end there. I was actually going to modify this a bit to put a wider flange on, but anyway, I'll probably use that. It's in pretty good nick. I've decided to clean up the metal a bit more on the bulkhead, mainly on the right hand side of the car, but I might as well do all the way across. All I've done so far is rub that with I think 80 grit and 100 grit to try and remove the old undercoat and some of the surface rust. There's still some of it clinging there, particularly in the gutters and so on. So I'm just going to apply some vinegar over the top and using damp towels. So I'll just do that now right across. I'll see if I can get it up into here as well. Now I've done a little bit of sandblasting in there, but I'll just put a bit of vinegar as well and just see how it cleans up. I've just applied the vinegar and the paper towels and covered that with cling wrap. Now it's quite damp under there, it's not running off, and what I'll do is that each day I'll lift the cling wrap and make sure this paper towel is all moist. Now hopefully in a few days this will start to go orange with rust that it's taking off the panel, so we'll see how that goes. This is probably the largest area I've ever done under cling wrap, so not sure how it will go, but let's see. Now, the vinegar's been on for 3 days, and you can see that the rust has come up through the paper towel. The cling wrap has kept it moist. That's still, I can't see it on my finger, but it's still moist from when I sprayed it last night. So 3 days now. With the transmission tunnel, I left it on I think for 4 to 5 days, but I'll see how it goes after 3. I'm hoping that it's come up quite well. Now it's easy enough to get that off because it's still moist, and that will just layer off like that. Now it doesn't look any different like that, but I'll get a wire brush and I'll just scuff that up, and I'll just see if it's worked enough after 3 days. It looks like it probably has. As I say, you can't really tell until you scuff that up and then clean the surface off, so I'll just do that now. Now that's the surface just cleaned up with a wire brush. Just been over with this. Then I've just wiped the sludge off. Used a damp paper towel to just remove the remainder of the vinegar. And a light scuff with a piece of 100 grit paper. Now it started to flash off. You might be able to see a little bit of yellow in there. It's just normal. It does that as soon as everything is dry. Now what I'll do, it's a bit hard sort of holding the camera, but I'll see how I go. Now, a bit of Scotch-Brite. This is just commercial rust converter. Just buy it, in our case, at Bunnings. Its main ingredient is phosphoric acid. Now, what I do with that is just rub that on. Use the scourer for a bit of scouring action to make sure you get it in any depression. And get it down into there. I notice there it's still a bit of rust in there, so I might put another cloth on that for a few days just to clean that out. That'll come out. But it's come out of the gutter. So just rub that on. Okay. Put that to one side. Then wipe that off. You see the muck that comes off. And there's the panel. Nice clean, nice clean steel. Better make sure you get all that off. You can probably wipe that now over with a damp paper towel, which I'll do. Not too much water on it. It won't rust up again. So what we have here on this side, that was just rubbed back with sanding discs. It does leave little bits of ingrained rust in the surface. This here is treated for 3 days. As I say, that will come off and you end up with a surface like that. So 3 days, whether I should have left this another day or two and I might have got that out, but I'll do that anyway. That's just a small section, easy to do. So you can see it actually works. A bit slow, but so am I. I'm not really in that much of a hurry. By the time I rebuild this, I'll have all this cleaned off back to bare steel. No need for the sandblasting on that. Easy enough to do. Just do small sections at a time, and it works well. Now I've applied the vinegar for another 3 days on this side. It's cleaned all the rust off. It also softens the primer, so it makes it a lot easier to get off. I mean, I haven't bothered to take it out of there yet, but it's cleaned it up nicely. and so you can certainly see the difference where I actually haven't done it. So all of that up in here will end up like this once I've cleaned it off. But I haven't worked on that side of the car, so I'm only cleaning this side first, so let's work well. The repairs to the transmission tunnel went well, so a new section along the bottom there, and also I replaced the seatbelt mount. The original one, quite rusted on the rear, and what I've done is put a wider plate, and it actually goes in behind that seam now. Before it used to follow that seam, so it goes in behind the seam for a bit more strength. Put a new section on the bottom there from about where that cut is down. Took a while to form up the panel, but that's gone in well. Started to work on this. I wasn't going to do this, but I've decided that while I'm repairing the tunnel I might as well keep going around the car. And this closing plate, it was rusted on the bottom end, so I've just been forming up a new piece for that. While I was doing the clean-up job, I cleaned this with vinegar, so I thought I'd make sure all of this is done before I move to the other side. Now I wasn't going to do that, probably in a rush to get to the other side and do more work, but I decided to finish this. I've got, you can see there, this panel at the end that was rusted out on the bottom. I've yet to form that, so I'm doing that. The cover for the tunnel, seeing I panel beaded the gearbox cover and cleaned that up, I decided to do that as well. Still haven't cleaned all the paint off, but got all the rust off with vinegar. This end here will have to be replaced, so I'm going to make a panel for that. So it's all actually going quite well at this stage. I'm a little bit slower than I thought. I had hoped to have moved to the other side by the end of this month, but I reconsidered that and decided a few things I need to finish. So when I leave this side, there's not much to do when I come back other than to obviously weld all the floor in. Still haven't welded the sill in. It's in place. I've rechecked all the alignment, that's okay. So I'm ready to do that when I finish this. But what I've also got to do is to make the reinforcing panels. They're badly rusted, so I looked at repairing them, but it's probably easier to remake them. So I'm also planning to do that probably before I move to the other side. So it's still progressing slowly but well.